All right, so today we're really diving deep into this whole digital nomad thing.
Yeah, it's really blowing up.
It really is. It's more than just working remotely, though, right? It's a whole lifestyle.
It definitely is. It's about using technology to create a life with more freedom and flexibility to work where you want when you want.
Okay, so like you could be working on your laptop from a beach in Bali one week and then a coffee shop in Paris the next.
Exactly. It's about breaking free from the traditional 9 to 5 and designing a life around your own values and priorities.
That sounds amazing in theory, but let's be real for a second. Scrolling through Instagram, you see all these perfect pictures of digital nomads working poolside laptops glowing. It can't all be sunshine and cocktails, right?
You're right to be skeptical. Instagram often just shows the highlight reel. The reality of being a digital nomad is that it's just like any other lifestyle. There are pros and cons, and there's a lot more to it than just having a laptop and a plane ticket.
Right, like what about the logistics of it all? Visas, taxes, finding reliable Wi-Fi.
Exactly. It takes a lot of planning, resourcefulness, and adaptability to make it work.
So more like navigating a jungle than relaxing on a beach sometimes.
Sometimes it can feel that way, but that's also part of the adventure.
Yeah.
And there's a growing community of digital nomads who are figuring it out together and supporting each other along the way.
That's interesting. So it's like this lifestyle is creating its own kind of support system.
Definitely. There are online forums, Facebook groups, co-working spaces. It's easier than ever to connect with other digital nomads, share tips and advice, and even collaborate on projects.
That's really cool. It's like finding your tribe even though you're constantly on the move.
Exactly. And that sense of community can be really important because, let's face it, being a digital nomad can also be lonely at times.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a challenge.
Yeah,
Constantly being in new places, meeting new people. It's exciting, but it can also be a bit overwhelming.
for sure.
Hmm.
It takes a certain type of person to thrive as a digital nomad.
Hmm?
You'd be independent, self-motivated, comfortable with uncertainty, and really good at adapting to new environments and cultures.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not for everyone, but for the right person, it sounds like it could be an incredibly rewarding experience.
It definitely can be. It's about finding that balance between exploring the world and staying productive and focused on your work.
And it seems like that balance looks different for everyone.
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Right.
It's all about figuring out what works best for you and your lifestyle.
Okay, so we've talked about the freedom and the flexibility, but let's get real about the challenges.
Yeah.
What are some of the not so glamorous aspects of being a digital nomad?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, let's just say those Instagram pictures don't always show the reality of trying to find a reliable Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah, that's one thing I definitely wondered about. Like, how do you actually get work done when you're in a different time zone every week?
It's definitely a challenge. You got to be really good at planning ahead and communicating with clients or colleagues.
So, like, letting them know your working hours and stuff.
Exactly. And being understanding when things come up. Sometimes you just can't avoid a late night call or an early morning deadline.
Okay, so communication is key. But even with that sorted, what about the actual work itself? Are there certain types of jobs that are better suited for the digital nomad life?
Well, freelancing is definitely a popular choice,
Yeah.
especially in fields like writing web development, graphic design, those kinds of things. But really, any job that can be done remotely is fair game.
So you could be a virtual assistant, a teacher, a consultant.
Exactly. The possibilities are pretty much endless these days.
That's really cool. But I imagine it takes a certain kind of personality to make it work. Like you'd have to be super organized and self-motivated, right?
Absolutely. When you're your own boss, you have to be able to manage your time effectively and stay on top of your workload. And you have to be comfortable with uncertainty and change, because things don't always go according to plan when you're living a nomadic lifestyle.
No kidding. I can imagine there are a lot of unexpected challenges that come up. What about the financial side of things? Is it expensive to be a digital nomad?
That's a tough one to answer. It really depends on your travel style and your spending habits.
Right, like staying in hostels versus five-star hotels.
Exactly. And eating street food versus fancy restaurants.
Yeah.
But in general, I'd say it's possible to live a comfortable nomadic lifestyle without breaking the bank, especially if you're smart about budgeting and finding ways to save money.
Like what? Give me some tips.
Well, for starters, you can travel to countries with a lower cost of living. Southeast Asia is really popular with digital nomads for that reason. And there are tons of websites and apps that can help you find affordable flights, accommodation, and activities.
That's good to know. So it's not just for the wealthy elite.
Definitely not. You don't have to be rich to be a digital nomad. Just resourceful and willing to put in a little effort.
So we've talked about the practical side of things, but what about the emotional aspect? It must be pretty challenging to be away from your family and friends for long periods of time.
It can be tough, for sure, especially at the beginning. But there are definitely ways to make it easier.
Like what? How do you stay connected?
Well, technology obviously plays a big role. Video calls, messaging apps, social media.
Those are lifesavers.
They really are. And then there's the whole community aspect we talked about earlier. Connecting with other digital nomads who get it, who understand the challenges and rewards of this lifestyle.
It's like finding your home away from home.
Exactly. And those connections can be so valuable, not just for emotional support, but also for professional growth and inspiration. You never know who you're going to meet or what opportunities might arise from those connections.
That's so cool. It's like this lifestyle forces you to step outside of your comfort zone and really put yourself out there, which can be scary, but also really rewarding.
For sure, it's definitely a journey of self-discovery. You learn a lot about yourself when you're constantly challenged and pushed to adapt to new situations.
So it sounds like being a digital nomad is about way more than just the location. It's a whole mindset shift.
Absolutely. It's about creating a life that's aligned with your values and priorities. A life that's full of freedom, adventure, and purpose.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about the freedom, the challenges, the community, but how do you actually stay productive and on track when you're constantly on the move? That's what I want to know. So how do you actually stay productive when your office is basically the entire world? Like, I'd be too distracted by everything.
It's all about finding a system that works for you. Structure is key,
Yeah.
even if your surroundings are constantly changing.
Okay, so what kind of structure are we talking about?
Well, first off, set clear working hours for yourself, just like you would if you were working at a traditional job.
Even if those hours are a little bit different each day.
Exactly. The point is to create some consistency and to let your clients or colleagues know when you're available and when you're not.
That makes sense. Boundaries are important. But what about the actual work environment? It's not like you're always going to have access to a fancy co-working space.
True,
Oh.
but even just finding a quiet corner in a cafe or a library can make a big difference. Having a dedicated workspace, even if it's temporary, can really help you get in the zone.
Yeah, I can see that. But what about when the Wi-Fi is terrible or you're jet lagged and can't focus? Those are the things I worry about.
Those are definitely challenges, but there are ways to deal with them. For example, you can invest in a portable Wi-Fi hotspot or use noise-canceling headphones to block out distractions.
Those are good hacks. But let's be real. Even with all the best tools and strategies, there are going to be days when you just don't feel like working.
Right, absolutely. It happens to the best of us. The key is to not beat yourself up about it.
Easier said than done.
It takes practice. But try to focus on the bigger picture. Remind yourself why you chose this lifestyle in the first place, and allow yourself some downtime to recharge and explore.
Okay, so it's all about finding that balance between work and play, structure and spontaneity.
Exactly. And that balance will look different for everyone. The important thing is to be honest with yourself about what you need to thrive.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I've learned so much about the realities of the digital nomad life. It's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows,
Yep.
but it sounds like an incredible way to live if you're willing to put in the work.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
It's challenging, but also incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
And it's only going to become more popular in the years to come.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. If you've ever dreamt of designing a life of freedom and adventure, the digital nomad path might just be for you.
Happy travels.